So we can get started here. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the 2023 RTM budget hearing for Wednesday, April 19th. Can the clerk please take the roll?
Ed Bateson. Marty Fury.
If you're on WebEx, please mute.
Melissa Longo. Amy Ruggiero.
Here.
Bill Gerber.
Here.
Karen McCormick.
Here.
Cindy Parham. Jeff Steele. Alex Durrell.
Here.
Jeff Galdenzi. Here. Tom Lambert. Sharon Pastilli. Laura Carson. Here. Michelle McCabe. Marcy Spalier.
Here.
Liz Esma. Here. Jennifer Barahona. Josh Garskoff. Joe Siebert.
Here.
Jay Walk.
Here.
Steve Barretts. Hannah Gale. Here. Andy Graceffa. Lisa Havey. Here. John Kuhn. Mark McDermott. Here. Jill Vergara. Kara Wackerman.
Here.
Cameron Chiniski.
Here.
Hank Ferentz. Here. Pamela Iacono. Here. Jim Myers. Here. Christine Brown. Here. Drew Georgiadis.
Here.
Margaret Horton. Kelly Cinto. Ken Astorita. Peter Britton. Brooks Ferracino. Story Tolman.
Thank you, Betsy. Let's all please rise for the pledge. All right, Frank, we got no consultants, so we're going to have to wait all night tonight? Okay, buddy. Just want to make sure. We'll start off with building. Page 161, we have Chief Building Official, Pat Mahoney. I think this is your first time in front of us. All right. Floor is yours, sir.
Good evening. I did present our budget. We have really not a lot of changes, pretty much just the contractual raises. Does anybody have any questions?
I'll open it up to the body for questions. Anybody in the room have any questions? Anybody on WebEx have questions? Seeing none, you had a great night. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Representative Gale, let's go. We got to move. Got a lot on the agenda tonight.
Sorry to bother you, Hannah Gale, District 6. I'm just looking at the overtime earnings and just want a little explanation on that.
Sure. As you can see, our overtime did increase. We are down one inspector, so we did utilize it there. We were down one inspector, so we did use less in our normal payroll, so that more than covered the overtime.
I see, okay, so it's comparable. Thank you.
So you're looking for another inspector? Is that so? You have a total of 7 here, but you have 6 right now. Is that what you're saying? Because this overtime's for next year.
Mr. Moderator, can I add some color to that?
Sure, Frank. Thank you.
So also part of it is that the inspectors are THEA employees, and so they got contractual because the contract settled. they're getting contractual increases. So it's not all due to, the vacant inspector. It's predominantly due to the contractual.
Right, well, we have a vacant inspector, is that what I'm hearing right now?
We have a vacant inspector, but it isn't for the, it
Oh,
doesn't account for the FY '24 increase in
Correct.
overtime.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else?
I'm sorry.
Well-
Could you please explain what that means? I didn't quite understand.
Yeah, so the THEA contract settled, and as was mentioned last night, because the contracts have settled, now there'll be contractual increases for multiple years in the budget, so those are reflected in the overtime line. They would have previously been in a separate account, but now they're reflected in the overtime line. So it's just because of salary increases. Their hourly rate is going up, and so their overtime rate is going to go up as well.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Carson. Well, it's for you.
Laura Carson, District 4. Wait, so it's not because of the being down one inspector, it's because the overtime went up is due to the contract being settled?
Yeah, so if you look at also, too, another piece that I'm missing, if you just look at the overtime earnings for FY '20, FY '21, and FY '22, the actuals were also trending higher. So a combination of the actuals trending higher, not because of a vacant inspector, just because of the additional work of the building department with all the development that's going on in the town. That plus the contractual increases led us to budget the higher number.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I think now you're done.
Thank
Sorry, it was
you.
a false alarm.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Have a great night. We'll move on to Legal Services, page 75, Town Attorney Jim Baldwin. Press the mic, Jim.
It's been a while. Lucky for me.
Must have been on vacation or something. Pull it closer to you so nobody at home saying I can't hear you. Okay, thanks.
You got it. So very simply, you can see that the legal budget has gone down by roughly 20% this year, mainly due to reductions in the costs associated with conservation, employee labor, and charter. So that explains the major difference. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. We'll open up to the body. Any questions from the body? Here in the room, Representative Gale.
Hi, Hannah Gale, District 6. I'm just wondering if there are any ramifications from the fact that the charter changes did not pass, and the legal services are down, but are there any legal ramifications that you're encountering or anticipating?
Point of order, Mr. Moderator, this is not a budget question. This is Drew Georgiadis, District 9.
Representative Gale, do you have something related to the legal services budget?
Yes, because he's anticipating that there are fewer legal services, and it's related to the fact that that did not pass, and I'm wondering, well, why?
I didn't hear that. He said conservation. He didn't say anything about the charter.
Oh, he did, yeah.
Oh, I apologize. What I reduction was the amount set aside for the legal costs associated with the process of charter revision.
We're not paying the outside
That's correct.
Mr. Malnick's fee any longer.
As well as my own time, correct?
Correct.
I see, okay, thank you very much.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Christine Brown, District 9. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Christine.
In the budget document, it says that the Phil Pyle litigation expenses are not captured in the operating fund. Where are they captured?
Well, they're in a different fund, and for that, I'll defer to Frank, because he has that information.
Yeah, the Phil Pyle expenses are captured in a separate fund, in in a mitigation fund, and so that's where those would be captured. They're not here in the general fund.
They're not in this budget at all.
They're not in this budget at all. Not in the general fund budget, no.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Pistilli? You guys have your hands like this. I can't see that. Like, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Sharon Pistilli, District 3. So are they in contingency, or where are they?
No, they're in, they are in a, in, like I said, a separate remediation account that's not part of this general fund.
Thank you. Any other questions from the body? Representative Iacono?
Through you, Mr. Moderator, just to be clear, the Board of Finance set up that account, and that's where that money is, and that's why it's there, and it's been that way for a while.
Correct.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nobody on WebEx. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, page Solid Waste and Recycling, page 181. Assistant DPW Director John Cattell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So solid waste budget increases are primarily driven by CPI index, which causes your professional services to increase and also your operating costs to increase. Those are the two main contributors to the change in the budget from last year. Any questions?
Representative Pistilli.
Sharon Pistilli, District 3. I used to be chair of Solid Waste and Recycling Commission, so this is my favorite subject. I was just wondering how everything's going, like with the compactor situation, and if there's any impact here from that.
Well, the compactor was doing great for about the past 9 months. We had an issue with the motor tripping out on us in Shorten, but our staff has been well trained and it was back up and running before the end of the day. We maintain a proper amount of spares so that we can do a lot of these services in-house.
Thank you, Representative Pistilli. Representative Astorita.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ken Astorita, District 10. Can you just explain the impact of the CPI? Because it looks like some of the increases here are somewhat larger than maybe I would have expected strictly as a result of CPI.
We increased it approximately 6% on from previous operating costs based on contract.
So the contractual rate tracked the rate of inflation, and that's what they were allowed to increase the fees by?
The contract has an increase based on a CPI index.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Astorita. Representative Steele?
Jeff Steele, District 2. Just a quick question on the tipping fee. So that's $84 a ton right now?
$84.92, correct.
$84.92. And it says here that it's projecting to go to $100 per ton over the next fiscal year?
That is correct.
And that's the fee that you pay from the transfer station to the incinerator?
That's the fee that includes the tip fee at Wheelabrator plus the hauling fee to get it from the transfer station to Wheelabrator.
And then what is the amount of revenue per ton that you're getting from the private waste haulers to dump at the transfer station? So what's the net, I guess? Or is that inclusive? That's the net cost.
Per ton?
Yeah.
You're looking at?
Yeah.
Per ton, it varies based on what type of hauler it is.
Mm-hmm.
You have commercial haulers that are paying $94 a ton.
Okay.
You have residential haulers that are paying $87 a ton. And then your residents, they pay the $6 per carload. If based on weight, if it's a pickup truck, then they weigh them. That goes up to actually $120 a ton.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Steele. Any other questions? Seeing none on WebEx either. Thank you, Mr. Cattell. We can move right on to Public Works Administration, page 151. Interim Director of Public Works, John Marsilio. Welcome.
Thank you. The administrative budget is essentially last year's budget plus contract increases for the administration or the administrators who are in those unions. And consequently, it's the same as last year except for those increases that were negotiated.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Marsilio? Representative Spolier.
Hi, Representative Spolier, District 4. In the building maintenance cost item line, just confirm for me, does your building maintenance include Parks and Recreation building maintenance?
Okay, this is the administrative budget, and we will.
You're ahead.
present-
I'm sorry.
You're ahead. You're not on. We're on administration, not operations.
I
yet.
apologize.
The answer is no.
Okay, so we don't have to ask that when we get there. Any other questions? Representative Gerber.
Bill Gerber, District 2. Thanks, Mr. Marsilio, for taking my question. I don't know if this is operations or public works. I've been looking recently at the Town Facilities Commission, and there's supposed to be a line item in the budget, I believe, in the code, the Town Facilities Commission's operations says that there's supposed to be a line item, I think, under this section for the TFC, and even if it seems that the Town Facilities Commission is sort of dormant right now, but it is mandatory per our town charter, or per our town code, and if it's zero, there should probably still be a line in there that says zero.
That line wasn't here when I did my first budget. I have not seen that line. Maybe finance would be able to
Finance
enlighten you.
or legal, yeah, because just the Penfield project sort of made me realize that our Town Facilities Commission, we have one, it's never been disbanded and it's not meeting, but the ordinance around it requires a line item in the public works budget and for administration of that body. I don't know why it's dormant. I think it's been dormant for a while, but it seems like we could have used it now. Can Mr. Schmidt, do you know anything?
I can take a look at it. Is there a specific piece of charter that you're looking at?
It's
What page?
well, I'm looking at the code, Chapter 39A, Town Facilities Commission. And when I moved here for years, this was pretty active, and it's become inactive, but I don't know why it's inactive. It seems like it could be very useful. Again, it just going through the Penfield process, it looks like the nature of this commission would have been right, to oversee that project, but they're not meeting. As a matter of fact, one of the members has passed away, and there's still theoretically a commission. But regardless, there's supposed to be a line item in the budget. Even if it's zero, it should probably be there, just to remind people that we're not following the code.
Okay, we'll look into that.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Representative Gerber. Representative Volk?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jay Wolk, District 5. I have a question about how are you guys doing with your trucks that you use for sanding, salting, and other stuff that you guys use it for? But I'm looking at the budget, and is this for new, you guys already get new, have you got new equipment, new trucks, or?
So there's two forms of budgeting for the equipment. There's that equipment that is over $100,000, and that's in our capital budget, which we are meeting with finance on now. And that's all contained in the 5-year capital budget plan. And then there is the portion of what we call capital expenditures that's in the operating budget. And I'll be honest with you, it's been very, very, very difficult to obtain replacement vehicles. The vehicles we're asking in this budget to replace are, look, there's two things we never do in public works, and you never, ever, ever do this. And you never do anything unsafe, and you never do anything illegal. And some of these vehicles are borderline both. $144,000 on a daily use work truck is suspect. So you've been very generous with the number of budgets that I've come before you and asked for, both large items and these smaller ones. And as a matter of fact, in the last 2 years, we've reduced that budget because I knew we couldn't obtain them. There was this supply chain issue, and it wasn't going to happen. But I think that's opening up. We're not always getting exactly what we want, but we are getting replacement equipment so that these workers can drive safely and legally.
That was my concern, of being safe for them.
Yes.
So, and also, you know, when trucks get older, like, you know, parts, very difficult to get parts for older vehicles, cars and trucks.
Well, everyone's keeping their vehicles because they can't replace them. So you are spot on. You know, it's supply and demand.
Yeah, I'm in the business, so, you know.
And you know.
Just, I know outside of it. So anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Volk. I think it was slid into operation, so. Any other questions for Mr. Marsilio? Seeing none, thank you, guys. Okay, Water Pollution Control Authority, page 227. I think Mr. Devanzo's here. Are you on your own? Okay. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Mark. Our budget is on page 228. That's our revenue budget. And our expense budget is on page 230. You could see the revenue, and we obviously cover all our expenses, plus we build for our fund. So you could see that our revenues are up 26%. That's a function of the fact that there was a change in accounting where we want to reflect the fact that anything over covering our expenses is reflected in the department account. So there's $1.1 million basically on the expense side that was put in. If you take that adjustment out, this is the first year for it, our revenue is up 8%, and our expenses obviously are up 8% accordingly. Quickly, I just would go, our payroll is up 5%. That's a function of the contracts. We originally requested 2 headcount. After negotiation, they were taken out of the budget. We increased the overtime slightly, about $33,000 to cover that. The big numbers are fees and professional services. Account 53-200 is down $89,000. That's simply a function of the town allocated expenses from other town departments. They reduced that allocation to us, so we accordingly reduced our budget. $90,000 increase in contracted property services caused by the fact that Manchester, Connecticut closed their dump. We now have additional expenses in trucking our byproduct out of state and the costs of other dumps in other states. Maintenance and repair is up 18%. That's a function of the plant's age. We will be within the next 10 years replacing most of the plant, if not all of it. Materials maintenance, chemicals, and everything are up significantly. Special supplies, again, chemicals are up. 2 other things that are in our budget this year that you haven't seen in the past, the redemption of bond principal and bond interest. We finished a project, the pump station up at Sacred Heart, the Easton Pump Station, and now we're starting to pay down the bond. I'll leave it at that, and I'll open for questions.
Thank you, Joe. Representative Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Christine Brown, District 9. The line 54310, maintenance repair equipment, the $670,000, is that for repair of the second digester?
I want to be careful because the Board of Selectmen moved the repair of the second digester from one account to the other. I just want to check, Christine, for a minute. See where they moved it.
So the Board of, I have the answer to that. So the Board of Selectmen moved that, it was $375,000. They moved it from 54,310 to 59,500 to authorized appropriations funds. So authorized appropriations from, so 375,000 was for the second digester, but it was moved to a separate line.
Okay. I don't care which line it's in. I just wanted to make sure it was in there. Thank you.
Christine, they moved it so that the boards can have control over it. So it has to come back for a vote.
Thank you, Representative Brown. Representative Carson?
Hi, Laura Carson, District 4. Can you just explain in the revenue why the you got it? Got it? Okay, on 42,310, why that dropped from 10,000, your revenue dropped?
Yeah, that's our tipping fee or septage, which is when firms come and empty septic system, private septic systems and dump it into our plant. What that is we used an average of the last 3 years to create that number. We've been seeing that number dipping. It's a function, I believe, of our charges. We're a little more expensive than the surrounding towns where these companies can dump. We were going to look at that from a rate setting point of view, but we left them, it's a small number, we left it alone in this budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carson. Representative Myers?
Thank you. Jim Myers, District 8. I have a question on the redemption of bonds and interest expense. I know that, over the next several years, you have quite a few projects that you have to do to sort of bring our sewer system up to date. Will you be able to absorb those costs in future budgets and still maintain a 8 to 10% increase in sewer fees for residents? Or is that something that's going to have to go up, or are you somehow able to spread that over a longer time period?
I'm certainly hesitant to commit based on where rates are going. At this point in time, using the assumption we've been using for the capital, which is where we'll get the money to redo the 7 pump stations, to redo at the plant. At this point, we can cover based on the 15 million we have in our fund so far, and that's why you see us trying to put another million in each year going forward. So the answer to that right now is yes, based on the assumptions that we've made in our planning.
Can I follow up?
Yes, sir.
And one other question is, I understand that you received interest income on the, I guess, the fund balance in the amount of, was like $500,000 or something like that. What's the intention for what you're going to do with that? Is that going to just add to your existing fund balance?
Well, we haven't gotten a commitment. It came up at the Board of Finance. In past years, we have not gotten interest on our money, and it really hasn't been that much money. It's been under $200,000. Now that rates are 4.5%, it's closer to $600,000, and we are in discussion with the town finance department as to whether they'll make a change and give us our interest on the money, our fund. And if we do, it will go into the fund and it will be used to support paying off bonds, et cetera, et cetera.
Mr. Moderator, can I follow up on that?
Sure, Frank.
So the Board of Finance did vote to add $521,500 to the investment income revenue line of the WPCA. So insofar as, this is an estimate, so if we collect that revenue, and that's based on a percentage of their fund balance, they would receive that money. But I would just like to clarify that, this is, in prior years, it hasn't really happened because it's been de minimis, just because of the low interest rates. And so that's why this, because of the higher rates, that's why this was looked at this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Myers. Representative Gale?
Hi, Hannah Gale in District 6. I'm just curious as to if there's any impact on the vehicles because of having to drive further in order to dispose of the waste, and if such as is happening in Public Works, and is that reflected in the budget somewhere?
Well, it's reflected because these aren't our vehicles. Our byproduct is carted by private carters. And that is covered in the budget.
Thank you, Representative Gale. Representative Gerber?
Hi, Mr. Devanzo, Bill Gerber, District 2, and thank you so much for volunteering for stepping up for this. It's a huge job. I just have a question about the personnel. It just how does the reporting system work within WPCA? Is Mr. Marsilio sort of ultimately the one in charge, and is time and expense allocated from DPW, or because I see you have a lot of employees, but you just they're mainly there's a deputy DPW. Yeah.
That's a great question. I'm sorry that Attorney Baldwin has left, but his opinion by the charter has indicated that there's more or less a dotted line between the WPCA Commission, which has great authority over the budget and operations, and the town. And the role of the Public Works Director, legally by charter, is merely to review projects as they're submitted to him from WPCA and make modifications as it impacts public facilities. So we hope that changes. We're looking to get a third party to come in and evaluate the organizational issues at WPCA and make recommendations. And this board and other boards can weigh in on that when those recommendations are presented. But for the time being, the superintendent of the WPCA answers to the WPCA Commission.
Okay, and I know you spent a fair amount of time on the digester and all that kind of stuff. Okay, all right, I won't.
Yes, we thank Mr. Marsilio for his help, but directly the plant superintendent reports to the commission.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gerber. Representative Georgiadis on WebEx.
Hi, Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Thank you very much. I have a question on the revenue line. In the last meeting of the RTM, we voted on that trunk line, and it was a huge additional cost that came in over a 6-month period. So since we bonded it, obviously that won't be in the reflected in loss of revenue for you. But I do have a question for your budget looking forward. I believe the town can bond up to $30 million annually. This year we've bonded only $20 million. As the WPCA, can you request to use the unused bonding power, if that's the right word, of the town? As I know we have so much aging infrastructure, it was all built around.
Mr. Moderator, point of order, I fail to see how this has anything to do with the operating budget.
It has to do with the budget, Pam, because if he
Representative
Drew,
denied
Drew.
$10 million to his access, I'm wanting to know if that $10 million could be part of his budget.
This would be part of capital outlay, which isn't part of this. It would be separate from this budget, so.
So you don't have access to that ability?
They would have to come to the administration with a request for funding for something, and then it would go through all the bodies for approval as either a one-time or whatever it becomes, so. Thank you. Any other, Representative Astorita?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ken Astorita, District 10. Frank, you said something, and I just want to make sure I understand regarding the investment income. So, my understanding correctly, the Board of Selectmen added $500,000 to the line item 44001, which is now 0.
The Board of Finance added.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Board of Finance added $521,500 to the revenue. And because these funds have to balance.
Right.
$521,500 was also added to the expense.
But is that in turn making a structural change to how you budget for the WPCA? And the reason I'm saying that is when you make that a regular line item, you start to rely on that. And basically what, to me, the risk is you're relying on interest rates to stay high and to generate a big number in investment income to fund the budget. But what happens if that is not the case? So 2 years from now, hopefully, if interest rates are back to, their historic norms, and you're not generating that kind of a big number, what's the plan?
So so there's two ways you could budget kind of revenue like that, because rates are high, and you could assume that kind of that's like, to your point, maybe one-time revenue in the sense that maybe 1 or 2 years you could expect it, but in the out years you may not be able to. So there's two ways you could budget that. You could either not budget at all, in which case it would fall to surplus and then go to fund balance, or you could put it as there is a transfers in Fairfield line in the expenditure budget, which is just saying that they're going to put it into their fund balance account. So they're not relying on it for operating purposes. They're just, the WPCA would just take that interest income and put it into their fund balance account. And so that would be, acceptable for something like that.
So structurally with this budget, it's not something where the intent is to rely on this year after year.
No, without this revenue, they could operate the WPCA, no problem.
Okay, thank you. That's what you
Right.
wanted.
Let me just add to that. There are a couple of line items in here on revenue. The I&I income, it's $400,000 roughly, and you'll see a corresponding expense line, $400,000. If the builders aren't building and they're not coming to us and we're not collecting their fees, we are not going to be spending on the I&I side to try to replace the pipes. So we have that as a balancing act. As Frank indicated, if we don't collect 500,000, our fund balance won't go up $1.1 million, it'll only go up 500,000. That's how that will balance. We'll cover the expenses. And then the last point is we have the benefit of setting our rates in August after this is done. So we will set our rates to a point where we will cover the expenses. And that's our main purpose with our rates, cover the expenses, and then anything above that is gravy that goes into our fund balance.
Right, no, I understand that, and that's great, and the point that I just wanted to make sure that I emphasize is that investment revenue, which, hey, you know, the fact that it's going to be 500,000 this year, that's, I mean, it's good and bad, right? That's fine that you include that in this budget, but what I wouldn't want to see is something like that become structurally part of the budget where you're relying on it year after year because things change, as we all know. And hopefully, interest rates go down, which is generally better for all of us.
Right.
And you'd lose that revenue. So I just...
We'll look at it every year, but I can say that it wouldn't structurally change this budget.
Okay.
To answer your original
Okay,
question.
thank you, guys.
Thank you, Representative Mastorita. I forget, Joe, what you said at the capital planning meeting about, I forget what you called it, but also the usage is down, right? You said we were down from, I don't know, 120 to 80, 85, so that may affect rates.
105 CCF down to 80 right now, yeah.
105 down to 80. So we have fewer customers or lower usage.
Our rate is based on water usage.
Okay.
And as toilets get more efficient, as you have non-water usage in toilets, air toilets, consumption goes down. When consumption goes down, the rate's got to go up to meet what we need to cover the budget. So that's all. That was the point I was making. You may see a higher rate, unfortunately, than what we've seen in the past to cover the volume shortfall. And
Thank you.
we'll know that by the end of May as to where the volume stands officially.
Okay. Yeah, so I grew up with a septic system, and my mother was always like, you know, X amount per flush. So, any other questions? Not number two, sorry. Oh, there you go. Got to loosen this conversation up a bit. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Nobody, that's why we're going to move on. It's time to flush this one away.
Mark, based on that, I'm going to leave on that image.
Thank you. I just couldn't remember a CCF. All right, then with that, we'll head right into fire. Page 126.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, members of the RTM. What you have before you is a budget from the fire department, 1.1% increase. There are a couple of lines that I'd like to bring your attention to that you may have questions on. Budget 51064, business and other relief, is a $30,000 increase. This is 50% of this budget is contractual, and the balance goes to managing overtime, particularly for project management within the department, for all of the varied services. As I explained at the Board of Finance hearing, the fire department does not have a very large administrative staff. It's the deputy and I, and we rely on subject matter experts within the department to assist with major projects that we undertake or are required to perform. So that is an increase and the explanation. The next budget, 51065, training relief, we anticipate a number of vacancies to occur or retirements to occur when the contract is settled. And each of those will create a vacancy. We'll have to send employees to the Connecticut Fire Academy for recruit training. So we're building in anticipation of those vacancies that will occur shortly after the first of the beginning of the fiscal year. And lastly, I want to comment on the fees and professional services. No, excuse me, not that one. The IT software. There is an increase. Our records management system is will go dark. The company is no longer supporting it. We're currently working with the purchasing department to develop an RFP for replacement, and we anticipate the costs to be significant higher than the legacy system that will retire. And with that, I will pause and open up for questions.
Thank you, Chief McCarthy. Representative Pastilli.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, Sharon Pastilli, District 3. Hi, Chief McCarthy. Your current budget, does that account for enough head count for 4 firefighters per truck as opposed to 3, like in accordance with OSHA guidelines? Is that where we're headed with our head count?
The current staffing is 1 officer and 2 firefighters on each of our apparatus.
And what's the OSHA requirement? Is there an OSHA requirement on that?
There is not an OSHA requirement. OSHA stipulates our operation at the scene that requires 2 people. If 2 people enter a building, 2 people need to be outside to be available for rescue.
And what if it's like a building that's more than like a regular residential structure? Like what if it's a dorm or a big office building or, you know, the other big condos that have been going up? Then how many people do we need?
Sure. The way that the fire department has been organized and that the way we operate is similar to other departments that are around us and certainly nationwide. We respond for those larger incidents. As we did on Friday, a single-family home, we responded with the entire staff of the fire department and called mutual aid. We call mutual aid infrequently, but when we need them, certainly Bridgeport Fire, Westport Fire, and the communities to the north respond with personnel, and we fill out our staffing needs at the scene with our on-duty staff as well as with that mutual aid support.
Great, thank you. And then are the costs for arbitration hitting next year's budget then, or how is that being factored in, and what are those costs?
Those costs are undetermined at this time. I'll defer to the finance department, but there is a certain amount of contingency based on the various elements that are in arbitration that would impact the budget going forward.
What costs are you referring to? Are you referring to the cost of the contract or the attorney legal costs?
I would say the legal cost because it's the incremental cost that we would occur above and beyond the normal wage rate increase.
The legal costs wouldn't really hit next year's budget. I believe the arbitration is set to end before the beginning of next fiscal year, so they wouldn't hit this budget. They wouldn't affect the budget that you're voting on.
Okay, great. And then so they're in contingency for now, so we're covered.
There is money in contingency for, as Chief said, various aspects of the arbitration items to cover whatever the arbitrators decide.
Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Pastilli. Representative Volk.
Jay Wolk, District 5. Hi, Chief. It's always good to see you. So my question to you guys is, to you and to the department is, I'm all about safety, and I've always asked, we just went through that with DPW Director, so now I'll ask you. I'm seeing on maintenance and repair automotive, $260,000, and then it's going to $273,000 in next year. Is that for new trucks, or did you guys get new trucks? Are you guys okay with your trucks and what you need?
So this is the maintenance account. We operate a maintenance division with a master mechanic and a mechanic. They do daily maintenance on our entire fleet. The capital expense for vehicles is out of the capital budget, similar was explained earlier. Sorry about that. We maintain a replacement schedule, and every 2 years we present the replacement of a capital piece of equipment. One will be delivered shortly, and we have another one on order. The one that's being delivered was ordered 2 years ago, so we have maintained that cycle of every 2 years in order to maintain a safe and reliable fleet. The maintenance budget is designed and constructed so that we can do our in-house fleet maintenance with our personnel.
So, and how you doing parts is fine, and all you're set with everything. So you're okay. And how long does it take to bring a truck in after you order it?
So, as we're finding, and as I'm sure that you know, the delivery times now are exceeding a year and a half. It used to be 300 days, was the 200 to 300 days was the industry standard. We're seeing some departments exceed 2 years from delivery. Once it's delivered, we take a couple of months to fit it up with radios and other equipment and get it into service. So the vehicle that we'll receive shortly will certainly be online by midsummer.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you're all set.
Thank you, Representative Wolk. Anybody else? Representative Gerber.
Hey, Chief McCarthy. Thanks for taking my question. Bill Gerber, District 2. This is a silly question, I know, but are the ambulance services in your budget?
No.
Where?
I can explain.
Okay. Yeah, where are they? Yeah.
The ambulances, ambulance service and transport is provided by AMR. We oversee their operation. Fire department and police department respond as first responders and supportive there. And we arrive first, transfer the patient care to AMR. AMR transports to the hospital.
Is there is that somewhere in the budget or?
There used to be a fee going back over 10 years ago that we paid when the town specified 2 paramedics on duty at all times. There was a fee associated with that for a period of time. That fee has gone away, and they recover whatever fee through their own billing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gerber. Representative Zesma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4, and thank you, as always, Chief McCarthy. Great to see you, and thank you for what you and your department do to keep us safe. You mentioned it earlier, and I'm sorry I may have missed it. How many retirements do you anticipate?
So, as is typical, firefighters don't project very openly what that date might be, because that date changes based on personal and family decisions. But we anticipate, based on age and years of service, that there will be between 4 and 6 next year. And that would just be straight retirements that need to be replaced.
And that formula of service plus age has not changed, right? That's been consistent?
That is not. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Any other questions for the Chief? Nobody on WebEx, so I think, Chief, you're done for the night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Next up, we'll have Police, page 132. Police Chief Bob Calamaris and Deputy Police Chief Keith Broderick are here. Welcome, gentlemen.
So, good evening, everyone.
Bob Calamaris, Fairfield Police Chief. I'll just open up by saying that we have a moderate increase to our budget this year. Most of the drivers relate to contractual obligations, increased technology for our investigations, and training for the amount of new officers that we have. And if you'd like me to go into detail on any of those, I'd be happy to.
I think we'll let the body ask any questions of the budget and keep it pretty simple. Any questions for the chief? Representative Volk?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jay Wolk, District 5. Hey, Chief. Good to see the both of you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, too.
Thank you. My question, again, is cars. I always remember all these years asking former Chief McNamara the same question. Are you guys okay with cars? I'm worried about you guys, that they're safe for you. I know there was an issue of getting cars in, just what the chief was just saying, with supplies. So how are you guys doing with that? Are you guys all set?
We are. We're doing well. We worked closely with the finance department to establish a plan that provides us with most of our capital outlay for the vehicles through our outside job fund. And that has, so far in the second year, applying those, the monies from the outside job fund toward the vehicles, and we've been able to acquire cars when necessary.
So you're all set then. You guys are all set. Did we think of getting electric cars? At one point, were you guys did you order those, or was that something else I was thinking of?
We do not have electric cars in the budget currently, but we have been in discussions with the administration in perhaps beginning a pilot program for possibly 2 electric vehicles to trial.
Thank you, and I appreciate everything that you guys do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Volk. Any other questions? Representative Zesma?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4. Thank you, Chief, to you and your department as well for all that you do for the town. That fund that you just referred to, the revenue is derived from what you charge for services versus what you're actually paying those police officers, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and it's paid directly out of that account to the officers.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So when officers work for utility companies, we
Right.
charge the utility companies a certain amount, and the officers' salaries are sometimes lower than that amount. And the overage from that goes into an account prior to us using an outside job company to outsource the management of the jobs. We would have to hold an overage in that account to pay the officers.
So it's non-lapsing. It just accumulates, and you use it for various things. Cars would be the primary.
Salaries, payment to the officers, and vehicles, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Representative Gell?
Good evening, Hannah Gale, District 6. I'm just wondering where in the budget the crossing guards are now?
The crossing guards fall under the Board of Education now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gale. Any other questions for the chief? Representative Pistilli?
Sharon Pistilli, District 3. Thanks, Chief, for everything you do. Keep us safe. I was just wondering, is this the first full year that the Shared Emergency Command Center is in operation, and what's been the impact in terms of the cost savings on the budget? And are there any other similar initiatives going forward where we might use a shared service model to decrease costs and increase efficiencies?
I'll start with your first question. It's the first year. We just merged Westport Police, Fire, New Canaan Fire, and Westport EMS over to the dispatch center on March 1st. We are too far in its infancy to determine the cost saving from the merger. However, I think we're seeing improved efficiency. I think we're seeing improved coordination between all of the respective first responders. So I think so far it has been a successful endeavor for the town of Fairfield and for the respective towns that have joined. That being said, the last question you had was relative to looking at other operations within the public safety sector to merge. I'd say that part of it is a little bit different. I couldn't see Fairfield and Westport police departments joining hands for operations, not necessarily that there wouldn't be a partnership. I just think our operations are a little bit different.
It seemed like such an out-of-the-box idea to begin with that it just starts you thinking, that's all. So I thought it was really cool, and thanks for everything you've done to make that happen.
Thank you.
You are looking to expand on this, right? So we're not stopping with just Fairfield and Westport, and that we'd go further, correct?
That's correct. Maybe I misunderstood a part of that. So we are looking to expand for other towns to join the dispatch center, and conversations with other smaller municipalities have already begun.
We're going to take over the whole state.
Thank you, Representative Pistilli. Representative Britton.
Chief, Peter Britton, District 10. My question is related to something you read about in the news a lot, of course, primarily in New York and other areas, about overtime. And I'm looking at the numbers, obviously the overtime earnings, overtime replacement. Is there a way to address this issue as maybe a broader subject? I know it relates to the budget here with regard to these numbers, but we got 2.2 million, right, in overtime. I'm just wondering if this gets analyzed, if there's a way to analyze this to try to reduce that spending.
So some of it's training, some of it's contingent upon the environmental conditions, such as crimes that are occurring, officers making arrests, holding over, officers using contractual time off, sick time, vacation time, personal time, and those positions need to be replaced so that we have fulfilled our staffing requirements. I'd say we are pretty judicious with how we apply our overtime practices, some of which is contractual obligations with the union. But I think, we have a pretty tight belt. I don't want to say it's not a lot. I mean, it's not out of line, no. In comparison to other municipalities our size, I think we are on the lower end.
I would just like to add, though, Peter, if you notice, we've been adding staff to the department over the last couple of years, because if you looked over the last 10 or 15 years, the staffing level actually was decreasing. And we weren't, and if you remember the chart that the chief shared with the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance this year, and then last year, showing us and comparing us to other towns similarly sized and calls for service, we were really understaffed. So I think that lends partly to the overtime issue, and we're trying to build up to a number that we think is comfortable for a community our size, to be able to not have that much overtime. But that's going to take time to get to that number.
Then you just figure that into the budget, obviously.
Correct.
Yeah.
What is that number, Chief? That Brenda's mentioning. I mean, are you staffed correctly now? I know we were behind on officers for a while, but it looks like, we have one new officer. So are you looking for You know, is that 75 you want? I mean, how many more staff do we need or want?
Well, we currently have 110 allocated through our budget. We are currently at 109. We have currently 3 officers on field training, and the rest are fully trained. I think we need to keep looking at it. I think we are just starting to recognize the savings that we're getting by putting these additional staffing on. Pretty much within, Deputy Chief Broderick, yeah, within the last quarter, we've seen a significant decrease in overtime. There's some generational factors involved in that, too. Some of the younger officers, if I could just paint a little picture, we have hired 9 officers per year for the last 3 fiscal years, so that equates to 27 officers over the last 3 years. Generationally, we're seeing that, or let me start with historically, police officers would come in and you know, they'd work the overtime. In fact, we'd force them to work the overtime if we didn't have the staffing to support the everyday operations. We're finding that most of the newer generations, they prefer their time off. And it's a little tougher to get them out there and back. So generationally, that's what we're seeing. So it is to our advantage to increase our staffing because we're paying those officers at straight time as opposed to time and a half.
Thank you. Representative Astorita.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. And you kind of just answered my question because it was about staffing. So I'll just take it one step further. So ideally, how many officers should you have out in the street, if you will?
I can't even answer that. I'd like to evaluate what we have and what we've come to after, you know, probably next year to recognize those savings before I make a statement that you know, I might regret. I will say that there are agencies that are comparable to ours relative to calls for service and population, and they have significantly more officers than we do in several different ranks and how they manage their staff. Excuse me. I would say that I would like to evaluate that at least for another year to see where we are. I wouldn't even want to make a guess at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also important to note, and I spoke about this at some of the other meetings, I met with the the police union president, and he had shared with me, the new president, all the different layers of work that's now required by our police department regarding the Police Accountability Act. So there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of things that they have to do, and he spent about an hour and a half with me explaining it. And the way he explained it, that there's these phases. So in the Accountability Act, there's more things required each year of the act that are going to push more time restraints on our department, specifically those who have to fill out certain things and do all these different things. And so I think what the chief also has to take into consideration how that's going to impact the department. So if we have so many officers sitting at desks, you know, plugging in information that has to be uploaded to the state of Connecticut for requirements and mandates, then he'll have to make assessments about what I would imagine you're going to need.
I can get a little more specific on that. As a result of the Police Accountability Act, it is what it says. It's accountability. And what we are finding is that the reporting requirements from the state are significant. And things like racial profiling reporting, state pursuit policy reporting, use of force reporting, policy and accreditation, redaction and FOIA requests, and human trafficking state reporting. So all those specifics relative to the reporting component and the accountability component, it's more work.
So let me just follow on that, because that raises us a couple questions. So can that work, that additional reporting work, can that be done by, a non-officer at a lower rate of pay? And then and I think you said this, you're not really sure how this is going to impact your officers in the field, because you don't really know how much time they're going to have to spend on this kind of stuff going forward. Is that correct?
I'll answer your first question first. So the first question is, in order, we've considered civilians to do the work of the accountability or the accounting procedures. The issue with that is that they don't understand, or it takes a longer time to get them up to speed. We would never put a brand new officer in an office to learn the reporting procedures or do those operations. We would have a senior officer in those types of positions, and having the experience of being a police officer for maybe 10, 12, 15 years, they would have a more efficient ability to conduct those operations. Your second question was?
Do you know how the reporting requirements, in essence, are going to affect the time of your officers that you'd have out in the field, if you will?
So not only the reporting requirements, but really the complexity of our investigations have increased significantly as a result of technology. So, things like phone dumps have become a regular course of our investigations. DNA is a regular part of our investigations. Computer crimes, everything is a computer. And every single crime that we investigate that has anything involved with it is related to a computer. And the complexity of that investigation, while it does provide a lot of data, that data to analyze and then use towards prosecution has just increased significantly.
So have you given any thought to, from a budgetary standpoint, because it sounds like when you're back here next year, your requirements could be very different than what you're saying now based on what you've observed. Is there any plan in place or any thought given to how the budget for your department will be affected and I'm guessing probably grow through the years here?
Yeah, nothing good happens fast. And I think we like to, we have put new technology in place for our officers, for our detectives this year. And I think as we evolve and as the contemporary issues in investigations evolve, we will continue to evaluate and increase our resources.
Yeah, because my last comment would be, this would probably be the one part of the budget where I would have no problem giving you whatever you guys need, right? But
that's on the record, right?
You can put it on the record, absolutely.
He might not be here next year, so don't.
That's true as well. But I would just like to see, and it sounds like you're doing it, just thought given to how the budget moves and is constructed going forward. That's all.
Thank you, Representative Astorita. Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Hi, Chief Calamars. Thank you for your department, all they do down the beach area. We see you a lot, and we appreciate you. I have two questions. My first question, I see that your training is up 5.2% with the Accountability Act that you were mentioning. Do the officers need to be trained pursuant to that Accountability Act? And it seems sort of a low number if there's a lot of new training per the items that you said. Is it adequate? Is it kicking in next year? Can you give me a little background on that?
Sure. I'm going to let Deputy Chief Broderick answer that. He has specifics relative to that.
Hi, Deputy Chief Broderick.
How are you? Excuse me. Are you talking overtime training?
Yes. It says the training, the 5.2% number.
What line item, Drew?
sort of lost my place.
58110,
Yeah, I think that's it.
5511. I don't see 5.2%, that's only.
58110, it's on page 134, is I think the line she's referring to.
Thank you. Anyway, are you anticipating additional cost per the training for the officers? Is that in this number?
Yeah, you throw me for a little bit of a loop here, but it's a 5.26% raise, a change of $5,000. Am I seeing that right? 58110 training?
Yeah, I thought it would be more training dollars.
So that's not training cost, that's cost related to training. So our training overtime is where most of our money falls to train the officers on an overtime basis. And we did go up significantly on that. That would be 51100 overtime training earnings. So we went from, I took a 5-year average and added $100,000 to it to request the 479,027. So the training things that will come out of there are training needs for the officers, ammunition, equipment related to training, classes. But yeah, we're over this year, and that was how we came up with our budget. There's nothing forecasted that we know, but we'll probably be in that range or maybe a little over again this year. But
So the Accountability Act is not adding additional training needs, costs?
It is. It is.
Okay. Okay. My other question is about the overtime numbers that we were discussing earlier. And at what point is it less expensive to run overtime versus hiring and making a new hire? Is it more affordable to run a little bit of overtime instead of making a new hire? Do you take that into your calculation?
We do. And I can't speak to specifics as it relates to salary versus overtime, because some of that is the fringe benefits that the officers, insurance and pension and things like that, that come along with the salaries. So I couldn't speak specifically on whether it's more worth it to get officers on overtime or whether it's more judicious to get them on straight time. But I can say that if we have a staffing issue because we are forcing people to work, that leads me to believe that we need more officers on straight time. Like I said before, historically we had officers that were eager to work the overtime, and we always tried to find a balance to continue our staffing levels, but provide the overtime that was, I guess part of the regular shift to fulfill our staffing levels. And now we're seeing those vacancies come more consistently.
I totally support life balance, so I appreciate that. But I do know that, especially with a pension as well as healthcare, as well as all those things, I would think that they have a 15% value on top of their salary. So I just was wondering where that number was. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. Representative Steele.
Thank you. Jeff Steele, District 2. I probably should have asked the fire chief this as well, but let me preface by saying, as everyone has said, thank you for all you all do for probably providing the most important service that the town provides to its citizens, in my opinion. With the increase in issues and problems around mental illness that we all face and see, has that necessitated any changes in terms of manpower, training, approach to doing your jobs? And is that reflected here in the budget? And I guess, secondly, do you have everything you need?
So During the middle of the fiscal year '23, we requested a special appropriation to hire a licensed clinical social worker that is attached to the police department, actually works in our investigative office. This has been the most successful program I think I have ever seen. The Jessica Bloomberg is who we hired. She is an amazing woman. She has served our town in just such a short period of time so well, not only for the police department, she has assisted the fire department, she has assisted so many people throughout our town just in such a short time. She's also part of the Juvenile Review Board, and she acts as a coordinator for the senior center, essentially. That special appropriation is now in our budget this year to support her salary. If I can just speak quickly about the legislation, there was a legislation change in 2022 that resulted in a 400% increase in risk warrants for mental health associated calls for service. So we were seeing that, not only on our end in our calls for service, but the legislation changed, which required us to apply for risk warrants anytime there was a mental health issue. With that said, I think we got ahead of the curve as it relates to hiring the LCSW for our agency. And as I said, I can't say enough about her. She's been great.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Representative Steele. Representative Volk.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Representative Volk, District 5. Just to bring up a quick point on overtime, let's not forget, a lot of the overtime is not paid by the town, it's paid by companies who officers make sure people are safe around what they're doing on our roads. So that's a big savings right there. And it helps the officers make more money, which is a good thing too, because I don't think they make enough, but that's my own opinion. But my question, my other, I want to go on to the line of 51040, which is for the specials. As you both know, that I was proud to be a special for a while, and it was very rewarding to be that. And I just want to say that. So when I look at the line item from 23 to 24, it's going down. Is that because of less specials that you guys have on the force, or just savings on other things?
Yeah, we went to the 3-year average, and we've had overages every year. Also, implementation of the new traffic car for the train station, the parking authority car. So there used to be a team of 5, 6, 7 people down there that would ticket the commuters, and now one person does that. So one car, one traffic parking authority car. The flip side of that, we pay $9,000 in software that we share. So basically, software, $10,000 in software is taking the position of 6, 7 specials that were working at the train station.
Wow. So, but they were big help. Specials are a big help to you guys, correct?
Yeah, we currently have about 40. We're looking to put on more. We could not succeed without them. They supplement us in such a way for road jobs, the beaches during the summer, Amber patrols downtown. They're invaluable.
Yeah, that was my area, Amber. But I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad. So you're actually looking for more specials at this point?
We are still looking for more specials, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Volk. Representative Bastilli, did you have something? Okay. Representative Zesma was next.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4. Chief, you mentioned earlier some of the costs that you, and services that are required for investigations. So I assume forensics, this is a third-party outsourcing, or how much do you do in-house? And those would be under 53200, I take it.
Your question specific to that, I can say that most, I would say 90% of our forensics or investigative analysis is done in-house. We have 2 officers specifically trained, and we have 1 officer that is attached to the FBI Cybercrime Task Force. So some of that, some of the technology he utilizes through that task force, and we assist other agencies with his expertise.
Okay, great. So you're not using a state laboratory or anything?
We use the state laboratory when it is specific to that investigation. And there are also times when we have a big investigation that we will call out the state police, and they have an investigative squad. It's called a major crime squad, and they bring out a squad of individuals that are also specially trained to gather and collect the evidence. What that does for us, especially when there's a bigger crime, is it allows our detectives to go out and do detective work while they are investigating the crime scene itself.
Great, and no impact on the budget for any of those services?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Representative Gerber?
Bill Gerber, District 2. Hey, Chief, great to see you, Deputy Chief. I was thrilled recently to read that the state may be moving to allow us to use cameras for traffic tickets. I don't know when that is possible, but it looks like it was part of the Vision Zero initiative, and probably I'm assuming this is something you would welcome, because I can imagine police don't love pulling people over as their top 10 things to do. And
I will go on the record by saying I support a camera program in the town of Fairfield.
thank you. Yeah, and so is it early enough? I mean, is it too early to start planning for sort of shifting, traffic over to that, traffic policing?
It's currently a pilot program through the state. I think there's 2 cities in the state, one of which is Waterbury or Danbury, that have piloted the program. I know that other states, I've done some research on it, and other states have had significant reductions in more serious collisions and less of a speeding problem. Traffic enforcement is not only sought after by many of the residents within our town, but also one of our primary complaints that we get. And it is also high in time and manpower to manage. We currently have a 6-person team specifically that conducts traffic enforcement or selective enforcement throughout the town on a daily basis.
Right. And I spent a lot of time on Villa Avenue with the folks there who were trying to get, stop signs put in, and, they don't always understand that they can't get a stop sign put in. So it's time of the individual. I think they spent 2 years trying to get something done there. And then the police commission spends a ton of time looking at these things. And, if you have any potential to, lobby the state to get this in town, because we know it works. It works in other states. I don't know if you have that power, but I guess it would probably increase your revenue and decrease some of your expenses at the same time.
I'd agree with that.
Thank you, Representative Gerber. Representative Gale.
Good evening, Chief and Assistant Chief Hannah Gale, District 6. I'm, weighing in on this subject because I'm from the city of Chicago, and the city of Chicago went way overboard in investment on these cameras, and they have become just such a scourge on the population because, traffic, of course, has a certain amount of logic. If it's late at night or if there is no one else around, in a normal way of living, we all, make allowances for that. And these cameras do not. And they will ticket people constantly 24/7. There's never any incentive in terms of the town government to not have these cameras because they're a revenue, generator, but for the population living under them, they can really become very oppressive. And so I just recommend that we want to keep our town livable, and we just look at this very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gill. Anybody else? Okay, I don't see any. I think we slid a little bit into the ECC before, page 236. Any questions on that? I know I read that there were some issues, people complaining about training. Has that gone away about a month or two ago?
Sure.
Well, there's always going to be complaining about something, but...
You said that, not me. No, I think we've made some hires. We're currently staffed at 18 dispatchers, allocated for 22, 4 of which are supervisors. We currently have 1 supervisor. We have Captain Pete Koval, who manages the dispatch center. And, just like any, I don't want to paint it with a broad brush. You have many of the dispatchers that come in every day, do a great job with a very positive attitude. And just like any organization, there was concerns with some training, and we accommodated the training requirement for those dispatchers.
Great. Representative Carson? Nope, you're... Sorry. I don't see anybody else, so thank you guys, and thanks for all you guys do. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Next up is Carl J. Dickman Golf Course, page 211. Anthony Calabrese doesn't like joining us in person anymore. We have a full spread in the back that you're missing.
Mark, could I ask a point of order?
What?
I'm not going to, I'm just wondering if our librarian is actually in the room. And Mr. Calabrese is
always,
in the comfort of his own home.
He always goes home.
So maybe...
He always complains about going last, so he got lucky tonight.
I know, but Anthony, you're home, and Scott's here, so I don't know. I feel like Scott should be given some deference. Just going to throw it out there.
I don't disagree with that.
Sorry, Anthony.
We can go to the library.
You always generate a lot of questions too, so.
Yeah, we can move the library up. Page 185. Scott and Jan, you're up. We're kicking Anthony to the curb for a bit. So we have Town Librarian Scott Jazambek and Deputy Town Librarian Jen Fisher. Welcome. Page 185, if I can read my own handwriting.
Thank you for the pronunciation of my last name. That was dead on, so excellent job.
I'm a language specialist. No, I'm kidding.
So thank you, everybody. It's great to see you in person. The library is seeking a modest 3.67% increase at the main library and a 7.25% increase at the Woods branch. Combined, this is about a 4.81% increase in our budget, primarily reflected in the part-time payroll line of 51030. A significant portion of our frontline staff is part-time. Our part-time pay does not align with the state or other comparable libraries. FPL has always attracted quality candidates due to its reputation, but we do find ourselves in a less competitive place due to pay. The average market pay for a library clerk in our region is $18.27. We pay $15.50. Library clerks are often the face of the library. They check your items in and out and care for your account. Last year, we saw a 43% increase in circulation, above the projections of where we thought we would be at this time, and this is a projection made before the pandemic. FPL's circulation was more than double all Connecticut libraries, and we have about 26,000 active cardholders, a 13% increase over the previous year. Comparing FPL nationally, our library triples average circulation, program attendance, and visits per capita. FPL was the 7th most visited library and had the 4th highest number of circulated items in the state of Connecticut. Our budget request reflects the need to attract and retain staff that provides a level of service members of the community are accustomed to and expect, while maintaining a safe and welcoming outlet.
Thank you for that. So any questions from the body? Representative Myers.
Thank you. Jim Myers, District 8. I think I understood from one of the earlier presentations, of your 26,000 cardholders, how many of them are non-Fairfield residents?
It's a very small percentage. I think we said about 8% of our circulation comes from non-Fairfield residents. We take part in a state program that's not, it's optional, but it's not really optional if we want to get state funding. So we do have a robust collection, but also our patrons use other municipalities' libraries as well, not as much as ours. But it's important to remember something like a construction grant, which we received millions of dollars for about 10 years ago, or 8 years ago? What was our building project? 12. Was we received state grants to do that. So while it does take resources from the community, we actually make about $2,000 a year in revenue from taking part in that program, other than the other state funding that we receive by taking part in it. And also it's value added because now our patrons have the ability to go to Weston or Bridgeport to borrow material that we may not have on our shelf.
Okay, and also are the digital materials available to outside residents or just Fairfield residents?
No. So in that agreement, it is recognized that e-material, e-books, e-audiobooks, movies which can be streamed, all of those can only be accessed by members of the Fairfield community.
Thank you, Representative Myers. Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Hi, I want to thank you very much. I am obsessed with Libby. I use Libby every day. And I wanted to ask the digital, because I've waited 6 weeks for a book, 7 weeks for a book. Digital book. Are the library materials, it's in there that you have your digital request for additional dollars for digital? I know they're very expensive.
So we did not make, we had a rather sizable increase in last year's budget. So we did not ask for an increase in this year's budget. There's 2 reasons for doing that. One is that we're right now trying to look at what the ratio is between physical and ebooks. For a period of time when we started to reopen, we actually saw a reduction in the amount of ebooks that were being borrowed, and a high increase in physical books. That's kind of normalized and went from a plateau to starting to increase. So we're really trying to analyze what our collection is going to look like in the next year or 2 as we come out of the pandemic. The second is that there are 2 bills right now proposed by the state, which we hope, or the Connecticut Library Association hopes, will change the pricing and the leasing agreements. So we don't want to invest too much money in the collection for the next year until we really know what the impact, if those bills will pass, and what the impacts of those bills will be. So we are not going to reduce our spending, but we would have to increase our spending significantly to drop your wait time down. It's about 19 days right now. That's actually good compared to other libraries, but it would be thousands of dollars probably to move it down to 15 days. The ebooks are just incredibly expensive, and the contract agreements that we make with the distributors are incredibly unfair to public libraries nationally and in the state. So we always have to kind of toe the line of making sure we're being smart in the money we're investing from the community.
Well, I just want to thank you. You always have the most popular books, the ones that everyone's talking about. So I have to wait a little longer, but I appreciate all your hard work and your selection. Do you think the 13% increase in the cardholder, do you have any data on whether that is younger families, makes up the 13% increase in the library card holder?
What we're seeing, and where this is really, as someone in information science, I'm always uncomfortable using observation instead of hard data. But what we've been seeing with new card registrations are families, but individuals who are moving to the area from another state or two, where they had very robust library service. We are getting a lot of people who were former card holders for Queens, New York, and Brooklyn. I will say they've all been very impressed with our library. Whenever somebody comes to me and says, I moved here from New York, and wow, your library is awesome, that makes my staff and I very proud, and I think the community should be proud of that. So yes, it is families and it's individuals who are library users, especially when you have renters. There's a considerable amount of apartments that are going up and condominiums that are going up. And that's been proven. Those individuals tend to be library users. Even if they're families, even if they're going to be long-term residents, they do tend to use the library a little more. So we are excited about that aspect, and we do think there'll be continual growth for cardholders.
That's interesting. They don't have the space to buy the book, so I guess they go to the library. Well, thank you very much. I think it's a fantastic library. You guys do a great job. It's always full when I go in there, so thank you.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. Representative Zesma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4, and congratulations on moving up one place in the state standings. And you guys are really great. I notice in both branches your material line is flat. This is after, somewhat of a significant increase from 22 to 23. Are you comfortable with the budget? Do you have the materials you need? Is there anything that you would like to get that you just didn't budget for this year?
I think there needs to be further discussion about staffing for teens. There has been some money put in the budget, and the select woman's been, has been listening to us discuss this. We've seen an increase in not just teens coming to the library, but teens needing additional support. Teen librarians are kind of a special, I'm a former teen librarian, we're a special breed, and we kind of do a little bit more than a librarian in terms of interaction and creating safe environments. As the discussion you had with the police department, we are seeing an increase in behavior and kind of indication that there are some mental health issues, substance abuse issues. It's always good to have teen library staff, especially when doing programming, to recognize that. So while I think in terms of collection, we're in a good place, I think we are have one of the best collections in the state. Specifically with Woods, I think we do in the future need to discuss staffing, which I think that happens with every department.
Okay, thank you. So you don't, see right now any gaps in your budget for materials?
No, again, our staff are excellent. They do a fantastic job of collection development. They're very passionate about it, and also very open to using new tools to do analysis, to look at data and how that collection's performing. A library only has, so much square feet for the collection. So it really comes down to the science of what we do. And I think our staff go above and beyond and just do an excellent job of it.
I agree. You guys are terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Anybody else? I think there you go. It's your
Thank you.
second budget, right? Thank you. Great. All right, now we can go to Anthony.
Sorry, Anthony.
She threw you under the bus, Anthony.
I'm getting used to it. Every budget hearing, I'm always the last.
Page 211. Well, make it quick.
You don't have to worry about that. So starting off with this is Carl Dickman. Carl Dickman Golf. not much of a change to this budget. Majority of the drivers in this is staffing, and I think you've heard that from every budget with contract settlements. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I've played it twice so far. It was great. So,
Glad to hear that.
Smith Richardson, 214.
Smith Richardson, same thing with the salaries and the seasonal payroll. And then the other large driver here is the capital outlay line item. There's a couple items in there. New superintendent vehicle to replace a vehicle that is over 15 years old, a bed knife grinder, which helps sharpen our blades for our mowers, and a multi-seat shuttle cart to transfer students back and forth between clinics and camps, and it's also handicap accessible. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions about H. Smith Richardson? Seeing none, let's go to Waterfront 202.
Waterfront budget. Waterfront, again, slight increase here. Majority of this driver is seasonal payroll. This houses all our lifeguards and parking, and majority of our parking attendants. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions, Waterfront? Okay, Representative Gerber.
Hey, Mr. Calabrese, Bill Gerber, District 2. Thanks for taking my questions. Sorry, I'm on the wrong section. I want to wait for the marina. Never mind.
I have a question. This is Drew Georgiadis.
Representative Georgiadis.
Thank you. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Good,
I was walking by Penfield today. It looks like one of the parking lots is going to be filled with construction materials, products, whatever. Will that impact the revenue for parking significantly or at all?
No, it shouldn't at all. That's only going to be there for a few weeks. I believe that is either the gas company or the water company. I forget which one at this point is doing work down there. So they're just storing stuff because they're doing work on Penfield Road right now. As we get closer to the summer, they're going to slide that down towards Jennings. So they'll be in the Jennings dogleg.
So the construction at Penfield, which won't start till October, obviously it won't impact because those lots usage will be down by then.
Correct. The stuff that you're seeing in the parking lot has nothing to do with the Penfield construction, but Penfield construction is a separate item, won't have any effect on this summer's usage.
Parking revenue. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. We can move to Marina now. Sorry. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Christine Brown, District 9. Anthony, I might have just missed it. I didn't notice. Where is the salary for the waterfront director reflected?
Parks and Recreation.
It's
7050 budget.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we can go to Marina now, everybody? Good. Anthony?
Okay. Marina
208.
Marina budget here is down, and it's primarily due to the part-time payroll, which was captured in the police department budget, which is the special police officers that work at the Marina Gate. So that is in their budget, so it was removed from this budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions on the Marina? Representative Gerber.
Hey, Mr. Calabrese here. I'm back. Bill Gerber, District 2. The marina, a few years ago, before COVID, went on a bunch of tours of the marina, and then I just went and looked at it again recently, and it still has a lot of those frog hooks with the square platforms with sharp edges, and I remember sort of hearing about people falling and getting hurt and suing the town. But do we have a plan to replace all of those with the newer hooks with larger platforms, or are we going to do it when new boats come in? Is the town paying for those, or are the individuals paying for those?
The individual boater pays for those.
Okay, we have no plan to renovate, those, the small boat section prior to doing something major, or are something major is off the table at this point, right?
No, something major is on the table. It's actually on the 5-year waterfall chart that the capital planning workshop put together. I think we're 2 years out still, 2 or 3 years out. I can't recall the year off the top of my head. But both a complete renovation is still held as a placeholder in there, and so is phasing in, replacing it over a couple of different years. But both are on the waterfall chart.
So is that why we're not replacing the frog hooks? You're sort of waiting until something major, or?
No, the frog hooks are an amenity that each boater decides whether or not they need, because not all boats need frog hooks, and then they get to decide what type of frog hook they like to use. So again, some of those smaller boats, they might have a deck on the back that a platform that you could just step right onto, and you don't need the frog hook. So again, it's up to the individual boater, and they pay for them. We offer them, but they pay for them.
Okay, I was hoping that we were just going to pay for those, because I think someone fell and sliced open their chest at some point and sued the town for it.
Nothing to do with a frog hook.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm just trying to look at the capital plan when that is. I can't see it right now. Representative Brown.
Thanks, Representative Brown, District 9. So Anthony, on page 201, the Parks and Rec Department, which one of these people? I'm sorry?
Are we moving to that budget now?
No.
Well,
We're still on Marina.
okay.
South Benson dock replacement is FY 27 and 28.
Thank you.
As reference. Anybody else from Marina? Nope. Okay. Penfield Pavilion Complex, 194.
Okay. Penfield, this one was slightly adjusted by the Board of Finance to account for reopening the pavilion for the summer. So we planned for 15 events between July 1 and Labor Day. So that's what these numbers are now reflecting. So you should be looking at the adjusted page and not the original budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions on Penfield? Penfield out for now. Okay. Recreation, 197.
Okay, recreation. Sorry, just scrolling to the right page. Recreation. This budget here, again, the driver is mainly payroll. Happy to answer any questions. I know Ms. Brown's been trying to ask one.
Yeah, I think this is where she wants to ask it. Representative Brown.
Thank you. I think I'm finally in the right place. So which one of these people is the waterfront director on this personnel summary?
On the personnel summary on page
Yeah.
201.
Yeah.
If you split the two, that's Parks and Rec Services Coordinator. Basically, that line that has 2 there, and the line right below it has 2. It says Youth and Recreation Coordinators. Those are essentially our programmers, and one of them is our aquatics recreation coordinator.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Brown. Representative Myers.
Thank you. Jim Myers, District 8. Excuse me. I know earlier you presented to the town the, Fairfield Recreation Capital Plan, and I know a few projects are, coming forward in the capital plan this year. but is there any room in your operating budget to do any of these projects that you presented, like on a smaller scale, or to work them in, or are they going to basically flow in as the town finds room in the waterfall?
Majority of them will flow in as the town works on its waterfall chart. Anything that's smaller that can be handled within the operating budget, it really is just mainly repairs of small items. We'll do as those things come up, but all the large projects would be coming through the capital planning.
As a follow-up, I thought that plan was fantastic. It was great to see all those things come forward, and I think you did a great job on it, but I kind of feel like, we're kind of teasing the town in terms of what could come, and I think even with all the spending on Penfield, it's almost like, how is this stuff going to get pushed to the back burner and whatnot? So, like dog parks and things like that, there's a lot of people who were looking forward to those things, and now it's sort of like, is it ever going to happen? So, to the extent that we can make those things happen in an operating budget or push them forward in a capital waterfall, that would be great.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on recreation? Representative Steele?
Jeff Steele, District 2. Anthony, just real quickly, 54,320, the $20,000 increase that is attributed to trying to repair facilities as complaints come in. What is that?
That is exactly spot on with how I've explained it, yes.
I guess we'll move to parks.
I'm sorry, how did you explain it?
The exact same way you just did.
Are there, what's an example of something that you've had complaints on that this would fall under?
A tree falls on a fence and the fence needs to be replaced is a fairly typical one. Boardwalks at the beach. Things of those nature, really resident-driven complaints.
Do you address all of them and fix all of them, or do you have a sort of a litmus test that, you don't do everything, I'm sure, right?
We don't. I wouldn't say we do everything. We evaluate, what the complaint is or what the issue is, and if we can address it, we will. And my staff is very good about addressing complaints in a timely fashion. If it's something that's too large for this budget, obviously then it has to go into a different process. It might end up in capital if it's that kind of money we're talking about spending.
What is the maximum? That's my last question. Like you would spend something.
$100,000 is the threshold.
Thank you, Representative Steele. All right, we're going to move to parks, 204.
I have a comment. Mark, Drew has a comment.
Drew has a comment. Okay, I keep seeing your name. Okay, 906. Yes, you have a comment. Go ahead.
Anthony, just a quick comment. I want to thank you for fixing everything so quickly. I have called twice in the last month, and both repairs have been processed by the DPW and for park and rec areas, and they're done the next day, and I really appreciate that. Broken boards, nails, dangerous items, so thank you.
Thank you.
Can we go to parks now? Anthony?
Let's go to parks.
Let's go to parks, 204.
All right, parks. So this is the entire maintenance side of our budget. This encompasses 7 laborers and then 2 supervisors, and then our contracted services, which is the large item, a line item, contracted property services. These are the guys that handle our athletic fields, the maintenance of them, mowings around town, etc. And I'm happy to answer any questions on this budget.
Representative Spolier.
Hi, Representative Spolier, District 4, through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Calabrese. I have a few questions. I know Mr. Representative Steele commented about the increase from last year in the maintenance and material costs, but it is significantly down from 2 years ago. And if you could remind me why we made that cut from 2 years ago to last year and how that affected you this year.
Which line are we talking about? I'm sorry.
54320, 54370.
In parks?
That's correct.
So I only took over parks last year, so there's no prior history within my department for that. So I could not answer that question.
So it was in recreation prior, or it went back to recreation?
Again, I think we're talking, I could jump back to the recreation.
She's talking about 103,000.
I'm on page 205, which is under parks.
Okay. Yep, I'm on 205. I'm there. I'm with you.
Item number 54320, 54370.
Yep.
So in 2022, it was significantly higher than in 2023?
Right. So again, this was not in my budget, so this was in DPW. The current budget that we're in is the first time we've been in the budget with this department.
Okay.
I apologize if I'm misunderstanding the question.
Okay,
but
I understand that. I had a question about the restrooms and how they're maintained and how that affects the budget. Are our restrooms at like Gould Manor on that creek area, at Penfield, they're not open year round, are they?
No, the restrooms are the comfort stations are all seasonal. They typically just opened up this past Monday around town. But again, those don't fall within my budget. Mr. Marsilio misspoke when he said they did earlier. They are under building maintenance in Public Works. James Ryan is the supervisor of that department.
Okay. Perhaps if I'll follow up with him if this doesn't answer it, but perhaps you can answer it. Do you know why then we put porta potties in every spot in those parks?
I could answer that, absolutely. So the porta potties go in there obviously when the comfort stations are closed in the off season, and then they typically stay during the regular season because the comfort stations are on timers. Some of those parks close earlier than 11 p.m. So if people are still in the parks and they need to use the restroom, we keep the porta potties there. It's more of a convenience than anything.
Do those timers, are they set just because of vandalism, and are the parks only open during the on-season because of freezing? Like we're worried that the pipes will freeze. So I'm sorry, that was two questions, but.
That's okay. No, in both assumptions are correct. Yeah, primarily to vandalism, homelessness, things of that nature. Obviously, other criminal activity I could, you could use your imagination on. And then, yes, they're not heated, they're not cooled, so they do need to be winterized in the off season.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I'm really happy that they're open again as someone who travels around town for their job every day.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Spolier. Representative Zesma?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Zesma, District 4, through you to Mr. Calabrese. Anthony, pardon my back. I've had a lot of people in my district asked about Owen Fish, specifically the removal of the trash and recycling bins during the winter, which I think is your seasonal pattern. And I assume keeping them there is going to have an impact on your budget. Is that done at all parks throughout the town?
It is done at all parks. It's not within my budget. It is in the exact same budget we were just speaking of before in DPW and building maintenance. They handle trash collection. They have the trash crew that goes around. But yes, the trash cans are brought in the winter, or any that we do leave out, we definitely shrink the size down of our footprint for the trash cans.
Yeah, and there's some complaints about littering, but I know that's not in your purview, so. But thank you, appreciate it.
You're welcome. No problem.
Thank you. Anything else on parks? Seeing none, I look forward to seeing you all May 1st at 8 p.m. What?
Oops. Through you, Mr. Moderator, I just wanted to
Representative Iacona.
Thank you. Pam Iacona, District 8, and he actually just left the room, but I'm going to give him a shout out anyway. I just, as we were concluding our budget hearings, I just wanted to thank the budget director. I don't know if anybody noticed, but there's been some really positive changes to the budget book this year. One of which is my favorite, org charts. I'm an org chart geek. It was one of my first jobs when I got hired out of school. I had to do org charts for the whole company I work for. So, but I did really want to thank him for the time that he spent on this. I think it's really helpful. The summaries have been updated. The descriptions are better. The flow is better. And so thank you to the finance department, specifically to Frank, for all that.
Yes, very well said. And thank you, Frank, in the empty chair. Well, all right, so 8 o'clock, May 1st is the budget vote. Looking forward to seeing you all. Have a good couple of weeks. No RTM meeting on Monday night. Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, meeting adjourned.